Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
Isn't that right? There's a dog on the other end you guys can't see, but she's been barking.
She's been very welcoming of you coming on the show. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you're all about?
My name is Poriya Khoshdel. I am a 28-year-old loser who lives in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I teach jiu-jitsu. That's kind of like my main passion. I'm currently trying to pursue, a career in law enforcement. I'm trying to juggle the idea of doing both. I'd love to open up like an academy or teach, or really more so compete, kind of like professionally. That's kind of where I'd like to go. It's just
For martial arts.
Originally I started with Muay Thai, so I did Muay Thai and taught Muay Thai for years. I still teach, but I've kind of made more of a transition in the last couple of years, really just focusing on grappling and wrestling and stuff like that. And I find it both more applicable to law enforcement because I can't just roundhouse kick everyone, unfortunately. But I can, because of it, I've actually started to garner a little bit more like, of like, I don't want to say necessarily a passion for it, but more of, and I'm sure you see it too in all your different like ventures. You're like, oh, the more I'm doing this, I can see more of a path of maybe making myself or something, or at least making something of it.
100%.
So.
Yeah. And I find like jiu-jitsu is so like it's a lot more sought after because there's a lot of striking academies, but to have like a good jiu-jitsu coach, it's like hard to find because I don't know. I've been to different gyms and like one gym I went and like the guy who was teaching the class wasn't great, and it kind of reflected on the students like that. And I was a beginner and I was just like, like I'm not like a great grappler, but even for me, like I'm like, oh, this, like I've had good instruction,
right.
Which is why maybe doing a little better like during the rules. But I find jiu-jitsu is a lot harder to get a grasp of,
Yes, yeah, and I think too the issue is because it's so wide in the spectrum of like what you can learn. The issue is that what you'll see, and you found it, was that when you're blessed with having good instruction, you can't really go back. When you see someone who's just showing a technique and it's completely in a vacuum, you're like, okay, well, like what is this? Especially for a beginner's class, like you need to have like, I would never teach you anything with fine details first. I teach you the broad kind of general idea and work our way in. And sometimes with jiu-jitsu, you get instructors who are maybe good at jiu-jitsu but don't really take the time to be a good instructor, and so they just teach you moves that they're good at, or their style that they're good at, and they have like I see it all the time. They have like a set of like 20 things that they're decent at, and they just teach it over and over. Maybe they throw something else in there or something cool happen, but
they do like the thing that they're like most known for, like they always get that submission kind of thing.
And it's certainly understandable from the like physical aspect of it. Like if you didn't like, let's say, working out, for example, or even if you did but you didn't have a plan when you went to the gym, more than likely you're gonna just do the same thing you do all the time. That's why you see dudes who just do bench.
Yeah.
You might not like the skill of learning the squat. And it's kind of the same kind of idea when they don't have a set plan of what they want to teach or fun. Or I know you want to have fun and it's jiu-jitsu and it's all this cool shit, but there needs to be some sort of a curriculum involved. And so when they don't have that, they just regurgitate the same thing that they've been doing for their entire career.
Yeah, and you kind of notice that too. Sometimes you're just like, oh, like I feel like I'm being taught by a dummy,
Yeah.
Like
No, totally.
as opposed to like when I'm sitting in like the jiu-jitsu class at 10th Planet, like with you and Micah, sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm in a math class, and it's like calculus. I don't understand shit, but it's good because like I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna break past this. But when it's like a different person, I don't know. It's not the different person, but you know what I mean.
Totally.
There's those people that don't translate as well,
No, sir. And we were talking about it like off camera, but like I guess the similarities between that and music. Like music, you can listen to music, a new form of music that you've never listened to, and it can go like one of three ways. You either feel it, you kind of like maybe you feel the music, or you feel, or you're not necessarily listening to the lyrics as much, but you feel, let's say, the music and how it reacts to you, or the music makes you think. that's the initial kind of thought, and it comes in layers. Or when you get the kind of best of both worlds and something makes you think and it makes you feel like off the bat, let's say, that's when I think everything starts lighting up. And when you get, especially when it comes to like physical exercise, you want it to be stimulating but not overly stimulating, where it burns people out. You want it to be difficult, but you don't want it to be anxiety inducing difficult. You want that flow. And it's the same thing when you're playing. You know it. Everyone in the room knows it when they're jamming. Whatever the shit's flowing, it's flowing well.
Yeah, 100%.
And trying to catch that like lightning in a bottle, it's difficult, but it's the sport at its best.
And that takes time to kind of
Yes.
build up to that. Like when you're learning how to play an instrument, it's like you can't just start jamming and being in the flow of it without knowing the steps to it,
Totally. It's the same way you would have like technique that you would try to learn, and then you have a tactical thing to do in a match. It's the same thing with music. You want to learn, the scales, what's a note, how to make things play and sound right, but then you have to use that basis to then have a tactic with a song. Like this guy's playing in E, I'm gonna fuck around with something in E, or this works with that, or he's at this tempo, and as a bass player I gotta lock in with him, but I know enough to like do little thrills and trills and let the guitarist and the singer kind of go all over it and make it sound beautiful, and you have to kind of adapt to that on the fly. Yeah,
part of that is like I always, because since I've been doing more Muay Thai, I like try to remind myself, and when I watch fights, it's like, okay, this is like a disciplined fighter. And when you say discipline, it doesn't mean like they show up to like, exercise and train all the time. It means like when they're there, they come in with like a set of moves and plans, and not gonna fuck around. Like one person who I saw kind of like lost that discipline was like Tony Ferguson, when he was just doing random shit all over the place. Like, he's just going for weird stuff, and like the opposite of that is like Justin Gaethje, who kind of like stood his ground and was doing the 1-2s and stuff.
Kicks, discipline with kicks.
Yeah, you're just disciplining yourself. So it's like the same kind of thing, I think. It's like telling yourself that I'm not gonna go do something too crazy. I'm just gonna do what works. No,
totally. And you, I don't know how familiar you are with like Jocko Willink.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's legit that it's the. Like the discipline comes, or the freedom comes from the discipline. Like a dog, for example, the most free dog is a disciplined dog. The ones that can be off leash, the one that knows to like when you see these crazy videos of a guy who's like stay, and he walks like from a German Shepherd, and he walks like 50 meters away. That dog is free.
I never thought of that.
That dog is as free as fuck, but it's incredibly disciplined. And it's you want to be like that, and I think that's why we relate to especially dogs the most. We evolved with them. And so a lot of things we can see analogous to them. So it's like when they're resisting the urge to jump or to have their thrills, it's like there's a better... It sucks at the start because you're seeing this, puppy that wants to do whatever, but you're like, if I put it in its place, so to speak, it'll be happier in the long run for it. And so that's the same thing with Tony, where it's like... or where it's like, if you just did a little less of the spinning shit...
Yeah.
And had a nicer jab... that spinning shit would work nicer.
Yeah.
So it's like,
exactly. But when you live up to like that reputation of being the boogeyman or whatever, it's like you feel like, no, I'm that guy. It's like the ego kind of takes over, and you're not able to perform.
Yes, I'm him, as they say now.
Yeah.
I hear that now. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
You're only as good as the fight you're in right now. Not the last 11 fights.
Yeah, and it's all those like mental hurdles we put like, I guess like on ourselves, macro and micro levels. Like, oh, I can't do this career, or I can't do this because that's not myself. It's like, who gives a shit? There is no you. You are like 5 years from now, you're a completely different you. 5 years ago, you were a completely different you. So
it's true.
It's safe to say that 5 minutes from now, I'll be a completely different me.
So we'll see.
We'll see. We're gonna get deep here, dude.
Yeah, we're gonna listen to some propaganda. But
I must say, this is dope. The
little lights there.
Little lights.
Thanks,
that's
man.
Dope.
Thank you. Yeah, a friend of mine, he got really into the podcasting and like he's like, he got one of these, and I'm like, damn, like, gotta step it up, And it wasn't that big of an investment, I'm just like, just makes it a little more legit,
And the fact that it's your full name,
Yeah.
it will never not be in style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you did something where it's like, oh, fucking Shayan Pokemon killer, like
Yeah.
maybe that might not
Yeah.
be worth the investment. That looks cool. You can have it all the time. I'm sure your parents think it's cool.
Yeah. I was thinking of doing the Cheyenne show, but I'm like, what if like it's not? You know what I mean?
You just like next week you're like, fuck, I have a better name.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. You know, but the name, it's like it is what it is. You know, it sticks around. But so you do competitions, right?
Yes. I compete fairly regularly in the Ontario circuit, especially this last like couple months. Pretty much, I'm trying to get my name out there as much as possible.
Mainly jiu-jitsu, right?
Mainly jiu-jitsu. My plan is, because I never got to actually compete in Muay Thai. I had like 3 fights lined up.
COVID or something?
Yeah, not even COVID. So back in the day, Ontario Muay Thai was very different than how it is now. Like I'm talking like even just 5-6 years ago, it was like no fights would go on. The commission was unbelievably strict. We would never essentially have shows. If you were doing Muay Thai in Ontario, you would fight in Buffalo. That was like the thing because it's closer than Quebec. And then Quebec went to shit. Quebec, I don't know if you've like paid it. Quebec's like
is it still in shit? No, because it's not. Because I know there's Montreal Fight League.
There's Montreal Fight League now, but like grappling is now.
Yeah.
Like
really.
Basically, yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of like grappling. Most of the shows, I think now they're starting to get like random super fights, but it was illegal for the longest time.
Really.
So it was very odd. And long story short, I had like 2 fights. The show literally just didn't happen. They canceled the show.
Really?
All right, well, I guess that's
and you're like already you had
yeah. One of them was 6 weeks out. One of them was 3 weeks out. So like you're in it. And then one, it was my fault. I got pneumonia, and so like that was
your
like,
fault for getting sick.
For getting sick. It was my fault for I took care of an ex-girlfriend who had a flu. She got better, broke up with me as I was feeling kind of bad myself.
Oh my god!
Like in my bed, I'm like yeah. And long story short, I guess I don't know if taking care of her like plummeted my immune system, but I got pneumonia like the next day.
Oh my god!
So I was like
breaking up with her. She broke up with you.
She broke up with
me. You were sick.
While I was getting sick with pneumonia,
so that probably brought your immune system down.
Oh yeah.
I feel like you like some people like they actually like their immune system goes down, and I mean a lot of people. Most
totally.
People, you just feel like tired. Depressed.
Shit. She was my first like real girlfriend.
I'm talking about Streann Studio. Streann Studio is the best podcast platform that is out there today. There is no podcast platform like Streann Studio. I mean, anytime I wanted to make a podcast before, I'd open up my computer, I'd turn on my camera, and it's just like everything was all over the place. But Streann has allowed me to make everything in one destination. So, I mean, it's made my life way easier, and it's allowed me to focus on making my podcast, having good conversations, then trying to figure out all this technical stuff. I mean, seriously, how many times have you tried to make your podcast with an individual or by yourself, but you're not even talking? You're thinking about everything that's going wrong with the tech. Oh my God, is the camera recording? Is the microphone recording? Is the volume high enough? You don't have to worry about a single thing when it comes to Streann Studio. They handle all that technical stuff, so you don't have to worry. So go on streann.studio today, put in your email, and you'll get a code, and bada bing, bada boom, you can start your podcast today. Streann Studio is amazing. Yeah.
So it was like 2 years in, like my first serious, friend for a long time. So I was like, but I was literally feeling so shitty that like when it happened, I was like, okay, and then I just, and that was probably the closest I ever felt to like dying. Like actually, I think it was like 130 something pounds, and then I lost like 12 pounds. Damn. I was always I weigh like 170 now, but I've been progressively trying to lift and put on weight.
Okay.
So I was always kind of a light guy, but then when I lost like 15 pounds, I was like, that legitimately felt like, oh, I might actually like not come back from this.
Were you in your 20s or like more teens?
Early 20s.
Early 20s.
I've just kind of, and I've noticed that I'm fortunate that I have like 2 much older brothers, like one's 7 years and one's 9 years older than me. So I can kind of see like the way their bodies developed, and once they hit like their mid 20s is when they kind of just started putting on size.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I've just always been like a late bloomer with like everything, to be honest. And so lately, last couple of years is, especially with COVID, I bought like a gym. I spent countless hours scouring for stuff, buying stuff. And in that time, for like that 2-year span, I was just lifting a lot in my garage.
It's cool.
Yeah.
You've been on like a YouTube regimen or something, or what?
Yeah, I always was fascinated with kind of like lifting. I think especially with MMA or martial arts in general, it's such a like hyper study of like the body and the mind. So I was always really into like nutrition and stuff like that. Not necessarily the best way in nutrition, but I was always kind of into that type of stuff, and I just never had the time to just lift. It was always very supplementary, so it's very difficult to get really deep into it because it's very physically taxing.
And it's hard too, because like I mean, for those of you who don't know, like he's also Persian. Yeah. So when we eat rice like every day. So that's carbs every day.
Every single.
What is
day.
that, like 2,000 calories probably a meal or something?
And it's the worst part is like we eat like heavy stuff.
Yeah.
We eat like stuff that satiates you so fast.
Yeah, a lot of oil too.
Oil and butter.
Yeah.
And they just don't understand, like, why would you not just douse this in butter and oil?
It's all about the delicacy. The deliciousness.
And it takes like 6 hours to make every meal.
Yeah.
Like no one could just make like there's no I've never heard of a quick Persian meal.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's always like get it ready.
Get it ready. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
You didn't. I have to call my mom like 2 hours in advance to be like, yeah, I'm coming home and eating.
Yeah. Oh, they get so mad, Persian moms.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I have to tell her, I'm like, I'm coming home. I'm gonna eat. And she's like, okay.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm just thinking all the times like she called me angry, my mom, because I'm not coming home, or like it's I'm gonna eat it later. She's like, no, we have to eat it together.
No. It's like, mom, just make it and leave it there. No, it has to be fresh.
Yeah.
Why? Who said this?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
who made this rule?
But that's we gotta respect them. We gotta respect them.
I respect.
Our moms have been through a lot, and that's kind of like something like we're going to talk about today is just like what's going on in Iran with women and stuff. And, like for those of you who don't know, well, most of you probably know there's...
You haven't been on the internet.
Yeah. There was a 22-year-old a girl called Masha Amini. A couple weeks back, she was killed because she... went out and protested, and she also, I think she took off her hijab. Was that a part of it?
Yeah, she just didn't have it on correctly. She had it on. For anyone in Iran, they're very like loose with it as is.
Yeah.
So that's the issue. It's that the morality police, that regiment, I guess, if you want to call it, everything that they do is up to interpretation.
Yeah, my bad. I don't think she was protesting. I think
not yet.
Protests.
Yes.
Because of that. It was like, as a consequence of her death, the protests started coming, and it's been pretty crazy because, I mean, every couple of years there's something that's going on. There's like the green movement that happened in 2009, and then I think in 2014, and then also 2017, 18, and it's always been like building up a little more. It's like chipping away because everyone feels divided. Even Muslim people, like they're like, well, fuck, I haven't been able to eat food. Why do I care about your government if you're not taking care of me? You know. So it's kind of progressing to a big point, No,
totally. And it's it's just in our lifetime, over and over. For those who don't know, 2009 was probably like the biggest one, the green movement. Yeah. And the literal reason that ended, do you remember?
It was because Musafi or whatever?
No, not even that. Not even just that, but like what people kind of like forget, when that was happening, was getting momentum. Momentum was always on CNN. And then Michael Jackson died.
Oh my god! And
nobody gave a fuck.
Really?
If you go look back, and it's like we completely forgot about it.
Wow.
Because that was such a monumental moment too, and like even as Iranian Canadians, we're just like, "Fuck, bro, Michael Jackson."
Yeah.
What I mean?
Exactly,
it's like, shit, dude, man. Yeah. Do you think they killed him? Like it was just always that, and now this has been such a difference maker because unfortunately it was a woman being killed for literally just being a woman. So because of that, Iranian women have gone up to the forefront, and historically that was always kind of the issue. So like when we look at like a lot of these protests, not to say women didn't die. I there was one woman, I forgot her name, but
Neda for freedom.
She was like bleeding from her eyes.
Yeah, that was her.
Yeah,
she was shot in the face.
Yeah, that was
I think that was 2012 or 13.
Something like that. And like she became kind of like a martyr for a while, but then legitimately, like what they do is like evil empire shit. They shoot kids in streets. They shoot people just indiscriminately.
Even athletes, like the wrestler who died, Dana White was trying to get Trump to sign him, get him out of the execution or whatever.
Yeah, he had tons of support within the wrestling community.
Yeah.
And legit, it like snowballed, and they were like, no, we're gonna kill him anyways.
It's crazy.
And it's the most wild. And the crazy part is, they imprisoned his brothers. So his brothers are imprisoned for like 35 years. Mom ended up killing herself.
Wow.
Yeah,
really?
That's the part people forget.
Yeah.
So it's like, geez, and like I don't blame her. Like her 3 sons, one is killed, 2 are she's never gonna see again because that's
3 sons. That's a lot.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Like, so she ended up killing herself, and yeah, like I've never seen so much support for this protest. Like usually it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. I think a large part of it is because you see everywhere people economically are just so strained. Iran specifically, or especially. You add COVID with that. You add the fact that it's just getting worse. You add the fact that we've gone through like a couple like waves in the Western world of like feminism and different things. And fortunately, even though some of it seems like a lot of women, a lot of so-called feminists have been like absurdly quiet about this. Like 3 that come to mind are like Oprah, Michelle Obama, and Kamala Harris. Who have like probably the most clout, like women clout right now. They haven't really said shit, but I guess because of especially like Me Too and this, that, the other, this has really garnered a lot of attention. And even though the cynical part of me is like, this isn't just like a feminist movement, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to explain to people like, it's good, but like a lot of people have been getting killed. Like they threw, I'm sure like they throw like gay dudes off of cranes.
Yeah.
In front of their family. As like punishment for being gay.
That's kind of like,
come on, man.
It's the same thought process I have. It's like because in the West we've been getting more serious about these issues. At least the media has been getting more serious about people being held accountable for being either misogynistic or homophobic or whatever. And we're trying to break down these barriers, which is not a bad thing. But when it comes to actual real oppression, then it's not just some like white girl who grew up in like a nice neighborhood all of a sudden decides she wants to become like a blue hair whatever social justice warrior.
She's wondering where are all the female firefighters.
It's like that person is not actually oppressed.
Seriously, like
the person who's oppressed is like people who are in war-torn countries and that are actually fighting for real opportunities to live like a regular human being, and the fact that that not a lot of people are coming out. Like now we've seen Gigi Hadid and some people. And I mean, in France, they're cutting their hair, some of these ladies, which is like, okay, good for you. You're cutting your hair, It's like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the France cutting hair.
Forgetting, I'm like, hey, you just keep it.
But it's
it
something.
Nice,
Because it's like a little piece of hair they cut, and it's like supposed to be like as if it's like a wow.
I can't believe it.
I feel like they're trying to make it more about themselves than the actual thing. You
think like an Ayatollah is gonna see some French bitch cut her hair and she's gonna be like, you know what, guys, we should stop. Yeah. We should really just stop. She cut her hair. Like, no, bro, that's not how it's. There's always that performative part of it. Yeah,
but we'll take it. You know what I mean? Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's super dope. Like,
but the cynical part of me is like calling the bullshit. It's like, bro, like get the fuck out of here. No one's gonna do anything about that.
Like, it's just bad.
That's the thing. The part of me is like the new leader Raisi, who's in charge. Part of me feels like they live for this shit. They live to like mow down their people because that's like. Anytime you hear about him, you hear about like his killing streak, as if like he's in MW2 or something. This is his profile, he's killed all these people. So now it's like his time to kind of rise up. But at the same time, it's like a period of instability and whatever, so it's weird, And
it's odd because like some people will be like, oh, don't sanction them further because it's just going to hurt like the citizens. Although that could be true. Argument can be made that all these sanctions, years and years, have been eroding the regime. So now you have all these people, and especially how widespread it is now. Now it's in all 31 provinces. Like that's wild because just some context, Iran is very geographically segregated. So what that means is like there are pockets of Iran that don't get the same water flow that the rest does. It's a very mountainous country. It's literally a plateau. Every inch of it is surrounded by mountains. So it's to see people from every walk of a country that has a shit ton of different ethnicities, a shit ton of races, a shit ton of cultures come together for something is kind of wild. That's the wild thing about it. That's the really interesting. You get Kurds in the west with Azeris in the north, with Persians in everywhere, with lures of here, and they're all coming together for something. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much, but I think like when you're separated and you're in your own community, like what's going on in the big city is not too big of a deal because you know you're, and like probably the people are nicer there too. But if it's made it to those places, you know, then it must mean like even the Muslims that are, you know, have been the loyalists who brought up the 1979 Khomeini, you know, because that's what happened in 1979. You know, they kicked out the Shah. It was because of the majority who was Muslim. Yeah,
you know, and that's the thing too. Like, especially with all this kind of happening, going back and looking, and their original idea was that there was groups of people from communists to imperialists to centrists to Muslims that were like, yo, we just kind of had enough of the Shah, or the feeling that, and broader context, the reason they felt this was because this was right after the oil embargo. So economically, Iran wasn't necessarily a great place, but certain people in Iran were in an excellent place. And so the frustration boils down because you're like, yo, this dude's like
a Western puppet.
Western puppet. He's living this incredibly like pimped out life. Like, let's just be honest, like he has a fucking room that was like crystals.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that room? That's the wildest thing in the world.
And his wife would bathe in milk, apparently. I don't know how hygienic that is.
I don't know. That's wild. That's
I heard that.
She didn't live long, so I guess it didn't really work.
Okay.
But yeah, so all this boils over, and then those people who are like, yes, I want to have a change. I need to riot and protest, ended up getting fucked because those communists, those centrists, a lot of them got like there was mass killings after the revolution.
My dad was my dad and my mom, they're both a part of the communist side. And I mean, look, like the you know, obviously people change.
It was a phase.
It was a phase. Yeah. My dad still is. You know, he's a contractor and does pretty well for himself. But that's the point. Is like, you know, they had these beliefs to make a better country.
Yes.
And, you know, it's not like the internet where they could look up like Joseph Stalin killed 500 million people.
Yeah, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but so a lot of them thought that if they team up with the Muslims or whatever, it would kind of like trickle down, and then eventually someone would take power and, you know, it all gets sorted out. But that's not what happened. It was like, you know, they just bashed their heads, and, you know, they firing squads, killing all these people. Both my parents went to jail. Like my mom went to jail for 6 years, and my dad went to jail for, I think, 4 years. And it's all because of their protests against this tyrannical regime that is in place today.
And it's crazy because like that sounds unbelievable. Like most people do not have parents that go to jail for like a couple of years, but that's like normal. Like you ask an average Iranian, maybe not the average, but you ask most Iranian, how did you guys get here? And it's this crazy ass story about how they got here, there, stowed away here, bought this there, and escaped this, and now we're here. All the stories are like that, and it's like you become numb to it. You're like, and
meanwhile we're growing up here in like Canada, you know, like me and you, like we could have been fucked. I could have been in the
military. 100% would have been in the military.
Yeah,
I would have been some fucking loser being like this to a dirty wizard.
Yeah. The dirty wizard.
The dirty wizard. That's what it is.
Or we'd just be like, you know, holding it in and like trying to get a visa to leave.
Yeah.
You know?
That's another thing. That's the wild part. It's how difficult it is for these people to like come anywhere, to have a life. Fuck.
Yeah. But that's kind of like what I think makes us like, I don't know, because, you know, this has been a huge issue for like my parents' entire lives. I grew up with Iran being like a huge thing. I'm sure you did.
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
right?
Oh yeah, totally. Like because you you only learn about it from them. You're not learning.
This podcast is brought to you by Streann Studio. Streann Studio is one of the best podcast platforms that's out there today. We're using this right now to record the podcast. And honestly, if you want to learn how to podcast, if you want to make a podcast, it hasn't been easier than with Streann Studio, because Streann centralizes everything that you need to make a podcast into one destination. So all you really need to do is go on streann.studio, put in your email, and then you'll get a code, and bada bing, bada boom, you could start a podcast just as easy as that. I mean, there's so many people I know that are using Streann Studio today, and it's got really cool features. You can go live on Facebook, YouTube, or anywhere you really want, because there's a bunch of different partnerships that they have. And also, Streann allows you to put effects in real time on your podcast. So it's not like Zoom where, everything's bad quality and you don't have any control of anything. Streann is actually really good. So if you want to use Streann Studio, I think you really should. You should switch over today. Streann Studio is awesome.
It from anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? So you and then that's where you get that kind of like schism of like what you know about it, what your parents know about it, and what everyone else knows about it. Mm-hmm. And then when you talk to them, you're like, that's not how it's like.
Yeah.
It's like, it snows in Iran. Lots of Iran get snow. It's not exactly. I didn't ride a fucking camel here. Yeah. I'd love to ride a camel.
There's a lot of different regions.
When I tell people I've actually ridden a camel, like, back home. I'm like, Toronto Zoo, bro. I was like 5 years old.
Well, that's just jokes.
That's it. Back home, right? Was it your family camel?
You park it in my garage.
Man. But yeah, it's it seeing, especially looking back at like how that revolution was and the kind of widespread support for it, you see that here. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of like interesting part. And that's why everyone, like, you hear the activists and this, that, and people who have every reason to be cynical, they're like, yo, this feels different. Mm-hmm. And it does feel different. Like, you can't necessarily put your finger on it, but like you feel the pulse and you're like, this feels off.
Yeah, 100%.
Interesting. And I'd love, like, especially, my parents are, going up there in age. I'd love for them to at least go back. My dad was never there to bury his sister, his brother, or his parents. They never. He, especially given that I was born here, there was never a risk for, like, let's say if I visit, they can't say shit and be like, oh, you owe military service. Whereas my two brothers, that was always the kind of fear, is that if they visited, they'd be like, well, no, you
have to stay. You
have to stay. Who knows? Whatever the reason was. And so it's.
Were they activists, your parents?
So I think my dad, when I asked, he's like, no, we weren't even in the streets.
No.
No. So my dad was in the military.
During the Shah's regime.
During the Shah and the Ayatollahs.
Really?
Yeah. So his went like.
They just switched up.
Yeah. So that was the fucked up part. After he got out of the military, he was also in jail, like military jail, because he just didn't want to. Serve. Your dad
went to the jail.
Military jail. He was a helicopter pilot.
Really?
Yeah. So he essentially but this is how it was worded to me. He had to essentially go to like military court and convince them not that he didn't want to do it, but that he wasn't good enough for it.
Really?
Because if you say you don't want to do it, they'll just kill you. That's fucking crazy. So you have to essentially say like, oh no, I don't think
they'll kill you.
They'll kill you, because that's like, to them that's like what's the military
betrayal, heresy?
Kind of. There's like there's like a military term for it, but it's essentially coward. Yes, desertion. Yeah. To them, that's desertion, not on just a honorable level, but on a theocratic level. Mm-hmm. Like you're deserting God. So to them, that's like you're just whatever. And especially because the Ayatollah is conceived as like the messenger of God's, wishes or whatever the fuck. He had to essentially explain to him, no, I don't think I'm good. I'd be good enough for the Ayatollah. I'm at this.
Oh, he's
position.
Bullshitting.
So he had to bullshit his way out. And he had paid some fines. And then the second that happened, he just started to get the ball rolling and getting the fuck out of there.
Did he escape?
Yes.
Turkey?
Yeah. So what? That's the. You either go there to escape, get hair transplants, or that's exactly. True. That's it. You'll catch me in Turkey soon. But So when he got out, they were doing like fairly well for themselves. Like, for all intents and purposes, they had a house and an apartment. My mom's side, so this is the part where I was like, oh, this is like totally unbelievable, and I don't totally get. So my mom, her dad died when she was 3. like natural causes. Her mom died when she was 16. So she was raised by like her sisters and her family. Her dad was a colonel of the Imperial Army. So when the Shah essentially got out of power and the revolution happened, they would come after what were perceived as like puppets for the Shah, people who worked with the Shah. They took their land, everything. Her family's wealth was gone. But they were able to keep some of it, and they were doing well for themselves. My dad's friends were, I guess, like protesting or some shit. This was like towards like this is later on towards like the
were they communists?
No. I think my mom more so was was down for the monarchy, whereas my dad
pro-Shah.
Yeah, pro-Shah, whereas my dad was just more like, I want like freedom kind of thing. Like he didn't fuck with the Shah, but he certainly didn't fuck with what happened after. And so I'm not too sure exactly what happened, but within that time they got shot at by military police, like MPs, at like a checkpoint. So my dad...
They got shot at
yeah,
the
car.
To escape, or?
No. To this day, I actually really don't know exactly what happened. From what I like talked to my parents, I think like my dad was like... I think they were like heckling them. My dad like heckled back like an idiot. And they just got their Citroen, the car, shot at. And so my mom has like a thing. My dad has a bullet wound in his foot. And then a couple years later, towards like when the Soviet Union was collapsing, that's when they escaped. That's when in the middle of the night they just said to their friends and family, "This is all yours now." So how it would work was there were dudes that would like you'd obviously pay this guy for a service, and they would essentially have you escape, right? So you
that's what both my parents did. Yeah, they made a fake passport.
Yeah, fake Israeli passports.
I don't know if it was Israeli. Maybe.
Yeah. They stole Israeli passports.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe it was updated by the time, because I think, well, when did they escape?
91.
91. So 91. My dad escaped in 83.
Okay.
He came here like just when Scarface came out.
Sick. That's a good time. That's a good
time. Then I'm not sure exactly when my mom escaped, but it was also in the 80s. It was a little before that. And yeah, they had to go through this process where they met this guy. He made him a fake passport or something, ID, and they went through Turkey through these mountains. And apparently, like my dad told me, like there's this guy like who's like turning on him. It was crazy. Like that's crazy. Yeah, he told me at one point, like the Turkish government or something, they're all pointing guns at him, and he was just like, he's sleeping on the camel because like obviously that's how they escaped. And he just wakes up and they're all pointing guns at him, and his way of kind of like getting out of the situation was like humor. He's like, "You got a cigarette?" Yeah, and they're like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Like they pushed him off.
Who's this dude in Anatolia right now?
Yeah. So he had a great poker face. That's kind of one of the things, is because like, when you're in jail, like you have to kind of like, he was like from Amol, which is kind of like not a village, but it's a little more like rural, I guess you can say. It's still a city, but it's so they have like funny accents in Persian. They talk like they're kind of like almost like, it's almost like hillbillies.
Oh my God. Persian hillbilly.
Yeah. But so he was serious. He was like organizing protests. He's a communist. He was like, like he was his like the disciple of like one of the main communist guys. I think his name is Torah, but he like died in France recently.
Yeah, we all die in France.
Yeah. And now that guy's buried in the same graveyard as Jim Morrison. But
that's fucking dope.
R.I.P. But so he he got caught up in something, and then because he's protesting or whatever, and they like these street thugs that they hired or whatever, these guys that were listening to the not the JRE podcast, but the Ayatollah Khomeini podcast.
He was the OG JRE.
He was the OG JRE, even though he's a piece of shit. They were passing around cassettes because he'd record them in Afghanistan or France.
France.
And then they'd pass it around. They'd be like, "Yo, this guy's woke. Like,
he's spitting facts.
He's spitting facts.
It is not my fault."
Yeah, that was like, look, like you could say whatever you want. Like they're terrible people, but the way they use the propaganda to enlist all these Muslims was like super grassroots, and maybe the CIA had something to do with it.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned they've declassified shit recently.
Yeah,
and they found out that Jimmy Carter. So apparently, again, when this was coming out of the oil crisis, the Shah, there was a contract that was coming up.
Yeah.
And they suspected that he was going to raise the price because he's like, well, I can. So why wouldn't I? And so, yeah, there's now indiscriminate proof. Yeah, there's indiscriminate proof that Jimmy Carter met with Khomeini.
Really?
Prior to it. He met with that motherfucker.
Yeah, what a little... That guy was so spineless, you know?
Jimmy or Khomeini?
Jimmy Carter.
Oh, Jimmy Carter's...
Well, both of them.
Jimmy Carter is known for being
the worst
pussy.
President. Yeah.
Like, a legitimate vagina.
Yeah.
Like, he had...
Well, listen, that's an insult to vagina.
Yeah, that's an insult to vagina. Like, Jimmy Carter, like, he's known as a failure.
Yeah. He's kind of like the first Joe Biden. Almost.
Yes. Yeah. He was old then, and he's still alive.
Well, yeah. He was seen as an empathetic guy.
Exactly.
Jimmy Carter, kind of. You know, people liked him for that, but he wasn't effective. You know?
And that's why I think so many people are... I think this is like the white... When I mean white, I mean like Western liberal white people don't kind of understand. It's that we don't want you to be friendly with these people. Like, we're coming... Us, whomever, are coming here... because of these people.
Yeah,
don't
you brought
shake
up that
their
point
hand
with Michael Moore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't shake their hand and try to get peace. We don't want peace with these motherfuckers.
Yeah,
we don't. That's why like a lot of Iranians don't like Obama. They don't like Biden.
We hate Obama.
We legitimately hate him because they're like, yo, you're doing deals with these guys.
You're giving them money to kill more people,
more of us, and then you'll turn around and be like, look at these great Iranian immigrants. It's like, bro, you piece of shit. Don't use me as a pawn and then use me as a talking point.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of going all over the place, but the Iran nuclear deal on the part of the Obama administration was one of the stupidest things,
dumbest shit
in history, because you're literally giving billions of dollars to your enemy not to develop nuclear weapons. And guess what? They still did.
They still did.
They didn't give a fuck.
They didn't give two shits. They're like, thanks for the cash, bro.
Yeah.
And now we're going to... And this is the dumbest part. It's like they fund... They don't spend the money on their own people, of course. They spend it on like Hamas, who then attacks Israel, Israel gets funding from the U.S. to defend themselves. Yeah. And it's like, do you not understand? Like, you just made yourself spend so much more money. Americans' money, like...
But that's all a part of the game. It's look, at the end of the day, they probably have some, their own foreign policy.
Something, yeah.
But it's kind of like, the difference between the globalist agenda and the nationalist agenda. When Trump was bringing more like, we don't have to spend the money out overseas. We got to do it here. We're going to make it great. His whole thing was like, fuck like foreign wars and everything. Yeah. And look, you could say whatever you want about Trump, but he did not do any wars. I mean, some people argue that he did. He met with the Taliban and he kind of gave him more power, which kind of led to Afghanistan. I'm not sure if that's true.
The geriatric guy just let him walk out with a couple months ago. Afghanistan, but Biden literally said, all right, leave the toys, leave the cash, and we're out.
That's for sure. And it was a lot of money worth of stuff. But the point is, like, these leaders that that people in the West elect that seem to be nice on camera, like seem to care about moral values or seem to be the perfect, cute, whatever, are actually doing more damage, because you have to pick the ugly for what it is and not for what it's trying to mask itself to be, which is Trump. We all know he's not a nice guy. He was abrasive, he talked shit, and that's kind of him. And was it stable? I don't know. But what we did know is what we were getting. Yeah. But with these people, it's like you're always getting involved. It's, you know what I mean? Like these Democrats and liberals.
You get the fate. Oh my goodness, like Trudeau's the best example of that.
Yes.
He says he doesn't actually answer questions. Like legitimately does not answer.
He just has a script. Yeah.
If anyone, especially if you're from a different country and you're like, what's all this thing? Go look at interviews of Trudeau when he's asked actually like tough questions.
Yeah.
And he legit doesn't answer them. It's like the most remarkable thing in the world. If you used to look at CPAC, like where they show the parliament and shit, it's like literally kudos to whoever is his like person, because like you found a way. Like you.
Well, he's a drama teacher,
Yeah, so
he's a drama teacher, but
and a ski instructor.
Yeah, exactly. Like we all saw like Pierre Polyev like asking the same yes or no, and then it's like 10 minutes of him asking yes or no. But I don't want to veer off too away to the West, but the point about the West is like, we could be these two Persian guys talking shit and like look at our own country, whatever. But the point is like now I grew up within Canada, and I consider myself a Canadian.
Yeah.
And a lot of the issues that happen, within this country, is from my parents like seeing what happened in their country.
Yeah.
So it's like I want to prevent it
Here.
You know what I mean?
I want to reserve our freedoms here, and this might even veer more so, but like during the George Floyd protests, for example, you see what happens when a lot of angry people come together. Extremists come together for, granted, like in some cases, like actual like viable reasons, but with no clear message, with no end goal, with carte blanche, especially from certain politicians, famous people of like clout, to just do it, just feel whatever you want, and it's like that doesn't work. That doesn't lead to anything good. In Atlanta, it led to hundreds of thousands of black-owned businesses burning down. In Iran, it led to a bunch of groups coming together with no clear end goal, and it ruined the country. And it's like, don't learn from the people who left for those very same reasons. Like, we can't, and it's not even just us. Learn from people who founded Canada and stuff like that, like the settlers and stuff like that. They left England, they left France, they left they left Europe.
Don't learn too much from those guys, because you might start doing genocides.
Genocide. So, but like they left Europe because of monarchies were out of control, because you legitimately didn't have freedoms and stuff like that. And they're like, no, this is a free place. This is a place where you can restart. Like, well, don't bring that shit again. But that's just humans.
And in the name of moralism, that's what the Ayatollah and the Islamic people. The Islamic Republic of Iran, the people that were devout supporters of this, is all in the name of like morality. It's like, look at what's happened with our country with the Shah,
the skirts.
The skirts, and there's no Muslim values. We have no values. And that's the same thing. It's like, look at these people who are white supremacists, or like,
how dare they say, oh, I don't want too much immigration, or I just want to take care of us.
Yeah, we're both like people not of color, but we're minorities.
We got enough color.
Yeah, enough.
I could check that box.
A little bit. I don't know about me, because like sometimes like I say like I'm not, and you're like, you're white, and I'm like, I'm not white, bro. Look at my eyebrows.
Yeah, right. Like, come on, man. For me, I take a tan very easily. Like I fucking hold on to that.
Yeah, you
shit.
look like this tan is from like 4 years ago.
Bro. It's so. And then if I take my shirt off, because I never go out tanning because I don't want to look fucking.
You're pale?
Yeah. Oh, I'm fucking, dude.
Oh yeah.
It's bad. Like it's just bad. My mom's fair skinned. My dad's dark. But that's just how it is with Persian dudes.
Yeah.
Persian people. And then you get the random Persian guy. You're like, bro, you're white.
Yeah.
You don't even tan.
Oh my God, some of them have blue eyes. Like my sister has blue eyes and blonde hair. Yeah.
And you tell people that, they're like, that's so crazy. I'm like, not really, man. There's like 80 million people.
And also it was like some parts were Russia, some parts were different parts. But a lot of we're ranting a little bit sometimes, but it's okay, It's like we're just this is kind of what's like the zeitgeist, is just when you see what's going on in Iran and you see it like little bits of it happen here, and all of it is like everything at the end of the day, like you just have to follow the money. You know what I mean? Everything is because of someone else's agenda, but everyone else is just a little toy soldier playing into that person's agenda. Like the BLM thing. Look what ended up happening. They started buying mansions, everything. And apparently, like, I don't know. I mean, I saw Candace Owens. She like visited the George Floyd's family, and they didn't see a cent. Yeah,
they didn't. Trayvon Martin. All these families, when people actually listen to them, and this is the weirdest part when George Floyd occurred, like the whole protest, like the amount of people that actively, like online, were like trying to ignore what their family was saying. In the sense of like, we don't want, like, he would not have wanted protest. Like, we haven't done anything for BLM. And this is another example of when they don't have a clear end goal.
Yeah.
And they took this part away from their site. But when they're fucking Marxists and they want to destroy, this is what they said, the nuclear family.
Yes.
It's like, well, maybe these aren't the best people to listen to. I'm sorry, but like, hate to break it to you. And this is coming from somebody who, I'm not in a rush to have kids or marriage. Like, it's indiscriminately fact. Families, good structure, that's a bedrock of societies. We can't appreciate cultures that come here and they're like, oh, they're so friendly and family oriented, or look at their food. It's like, yeah, because those traditional values stayed. They're traditions. Obviously, you want to evolve. You don't want to subjugate people to, anything, any bullshit. But like, fuck, just like learn from that. That's my best way to like put it.
You can't have a, it's like the Cultural Revolution, like what happened in China. It's like the same thing happened here, like during those times of like, craziness and the protests. You don't want to have a movement where it's all about trying to defeat racism, but it's actually racist itself when, you're not like that. The Kanye West thing the other day, like where white lives matter.
Why does that matter?
Why is it such a big deal? He's a black man expressing what he wants to, what he believes in,
Totally. And it's a noble thing to be like, I want this, I appreciate your life. Like if I put Asian lives matter,
that would be fine.
I'm not saying that ironically. Yeah. If Filipino women want to throw themselves at me, by all means.
Yeah. Like, all that to say, he was probably looking for a reaction. Yeah. Let's be honest.
Totally. But
who cares? Let him do what he wants.
Yeah. This shouldn't basic fun like, and this is the worst part. It's like people will find so many loopholes with, I guess, the being called racist or what is racism. Like, oh, there's systemic elements. It's like, no, you just added that. And even if you really wanted to exhaust every single like possible way of them out to get out of it, like you're like, no, it has to be systemic. Even though that doesn't work on a micro level, like if a Chinese guy owns a shop or vice versa, or interactions people have, you're just like, oh no, I'm not racist, I'm everything else. Like, fine, if you're okay with being prejudiced, rude, this, that, or the other, just mean, like, is that really the hill to like die on? That you're like, oh no, I can't be racist. I'm this color. Yeah. It's like, okay, so you're just an asshole. Yeah. And you're defending being like absolute dick. Like you see a video of some dude getting beat up during the protests and you're like, that happens, bro. Yeah. It's like, what? Like, what? How is that good? How is one innocent person being hurt justifiable to another person? Like, I don't, like, where's the justification here? What's truly the end goal? And a lot of it, man, it's division. You see a lot of these politicians, they took advantage of that. They took their photo ops. They took that knee to make themselves look virtuous, like they give a fuck. They pointed the finger at anyone who didn't say anything. Like, somebody can look at what's happening in Iran, not post or say a single thing, but when time comes to vote or do something meaningful, in the back of their mind, they're like, you know what, this person or this government wasn't in support of Iranian people and their freedoms, and they make a difference. That is so much more important than any virtual signaling, any hashtag, any post that they can make. Like, the blackout square, we don't need a beige one. We don't need an olive one to know or a gold one. As long as people are aware of it, and I get it, because it can get incredibly exhausting. You go on social media and then there's like some shit going on everywhere. Ukraine's happening. Iran's happening. You're like, what the fuck's going on? But
people just don't care.
Yeah, people just don't care, and a lot of it's people don't. Do you watch Seinfeld?
Of course, I'm a huge fan.
Do you remember who's wearing the ribbon?
What?
You remember that episode where Kramer was wearing for the AIDS walk the ribbon?
Oh,
and the Puerto Rican guys are like, who's not wearing the ribbon? Why are you not wearing?
They're chasing down.
And he's like, I'm at the march. Is that not? I'm walking. Like, is that not enough? Don't be those guys.
Yeah, that's a good.
Don't be those guys.
Analogy.
Just don't be the gay Puerto Rican couple.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
But you can still be gay.
Yeah, you can still be gay in Puerto Rican. Totally fine. Go dance. Go have fun in Church Street. I think it's close by. Have all the fun in the world, but don't be an asshole to people. And that's where, again, the virtue signaling, the globalist kind of idea comes in. It's like, no, Canadians need to be second. It's like, yeah, people who are unbelievably well off can say shit like that. They can say shit like, yeah, just raise taxes. Raise the carbon taxes, even though, I forgot what organization it was. They found out by 2030, Canadians are going to be at a net negative because of the carbon tax. I think it's like 60. I think like 60 or 80% of Canadians will be at a net negative. So they'll say, on one hand, no, actually Canadians are going to make money off of this from the rebates. It's like, no, that's just for gas. But for the other consumptions that we have, the things that trickle down as a result of organizations, what you buy, gas companies, whatever they have you, having to pay more, you have to pay more. And so they found out that, even though, and that's another point, but we can use something even more virtuous, like the environment, the earth. That's for everyone, right? But then you can use that exact same thing to try to divide people, try to make people feel bad, or try to force people's hand. And that's probably not a good idea either. Gradual progression is the best progression.
Well, you got to start in your own backyard before wanting to change the world. You got to start in your own communities. You got to start with it. Start off small, start off what you can control, like that's why you have to really get in charge of your own life before you want to start running everything else. You can't just want to take the world by the balls when you can't even, your own house is a mess, when your own life is a mess. How you expect it to make any change if you're climate change while you're literally we're
one of the worst polluters.
Not just that, but like your own house, like you can't take control of your own life.
I mean? There's I think this is gonna sound weird, but I think there's like a passage in the Bible that says something about that. It's like you don't comment on another man's yard, you put your attention to your own. And it's obviously back then they just had like fucking huts or whatever, but and you look at Canada, we put such a focus on like, no, we're better than that. We don't do dirty energy, that's that. We say no to these pipelines. But
it's all bullshit.
It's all bullshit.
It's all bullshit. You get the money you get the oil from the Saudis, and the Saudis ship it down. All the oil pollution within the ocean, everything, all that is way worse.
Worse.
Meanwhile, you fly around your private jets, you go to these big conferences, like all these different politicians. That's way worse. For the environment. And meanwhile, they're trying to put it down to normal people, like that are lifting the economy, regular people, people that are the plumbers, the people that are doing construction, the people that are actually letting your house have light at night.
The men mostly. I know you don't know. I know a lot of people think men are useless, but I hate to break it to you. If you walked here, if you turn on a light, like there's use there. You know what I mean? And and it especially goes to
like men are definitely they do more of those dirty jobs no one wants to do.
And that's the issue too. It's like we put so much virtue in that like we ignore the obvious. Like we say
no one wants to do those.
Nobody
jobs.
wants to do it. And like more so the energy thing too. It's like we say no to a pipeline because it sounds nice, but like even the natives that the pipeline was going through, they wanted it because they're like, this is jobs for us. This is economic growth for us. We're not, and like look at California when they tried to go electric, they had to like shut off hydro because they're like, well, we can't, our grids can't sustain this. And then we turn around and say no, we're trying to be cleaner and cleaner. We'll turn around and get shit from China, or we'll buy produce from Mexico because it's cheaper than growing it here. Because of the carbon tax.
Everything is for saving face.
Saving face
and trying to make it look good on paper, but in reality it's actually it's not better, it just looks better. And what it does, it gives government more control over your life in terms of, economically, socially, everything becomes tighter. It's like this noose that's getting tighter around your neck, and there's less and less that you can do to get out of this rut because it's everywhere, And that's why, you're seeing the rise of nationalism within everywhere. Countries like Italy and, here with Pierre Poilievre and, there's Trump back then. People got tired of him. Maybe there's going to be DeSantis. We don't know. But it's like you could say whatever you want and say these people are any label that you want, they seem selfish. But the reality is people, when they live in a society that their needs are ignored by their own government because they want to fund some war that's happening far away, or they want to help other people, you know what I mean? And it's not helping. It's more like they just want to make your life more miserable so you can rely more on the government and live in a society where all you can do is rely on the government.
And you throw the shit there.
That's what's going on. And anytime that's happened in history within China, within Russia, where the government has supreme power, people die, millions of people go hungry, and you live in a society where you can't express yourself, you lose individualism, it's for the collective. And I think that's the problem with just social media and society today, is that we've lost the sense of being an individual. And the people who are deep down individuals, they have, it's harder to have more friends. It's harder to get better jobs because you have to play the game, you know, which
yeah.
is, you know, the game is dictated by, you know, whoever's running the show right now, which is, you know, all this to say, it's like, it's like you really got to kind of unplug for a second and, you know, and kind of take a deep fresh of air, because we're all too much just into these feedback, you know,
feedback loops.
Yeah.
And it's, especially when it comes to like, you know, nationalism, it's just, I think sometimes people like are unrealistic with it. If like, let's just say, for example, a flood happened or some crazy hurricane happened, you have enough food to feed you. It's you and your girl and your dog. You have enough food to feed you guys for a little bit.
That's what you care about.
Yeah. And that's what should be your job. You take care of those people. But let's say somebody knocks at the door like, yo, really desperate. You'll probably let them in. You'll be like, listen, we have a lot. Take, you know.
In 2022, I don't know.
But like, let's just. What I'm trying to say is like
Toronto,
in Toronto, like, get the fuck out of here, man. I don't know you.
Yeah.
But like, let's say your neighbor comes by and they're like, fuck, man, my house just got destroyed.
I mean, my neighbor beats his wife. But,
oh, does he? Oh,
so
fuck that guy. Let's beat him, bro.
I've called the cops like 3 times. Like, they don't do anything. You know?
Yeah, legitimately, that's fucked.
Sucks.
But let's say, you know, some people do come in and you're like, you know what, we have a lot for whatever reason. We went to Costco. Every time a person comes in, the resources are strained. And at a certain point, your girlfriend's going to be like, well, what the fuck about us? We're the first ones here. This is our home.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be taking care of us first? What's the point of us having all these people here to look good when we can't help anyone anymore? Like, there are hundreds of millions of people that live in poverty. There are millions or hundreds of millions of people that live in absolute poverty. There is no conceivable way we can take care of all of them.
Well, there are ways, but
I mean, as in bringing them in. Like, the U.S. takes in 1 million immigrants per year. That's a fucking shit ton of people. But in no way can we help them by taking them in. What we can do is by providing things that aren't just throwing our shit to them, throwing our pollution to them, hey, just take care of this. It's like we can have some agreements without going so far into globalism or that kind of idea while we still take care of people here. And that's the most important. Canadians. I'm Canadian, you're Canadian. Downstairs, a black dude's Canadian. Over there, a white dude's Canadian. We're all Canadian. Take care of us first.
No, I totally agree. That's the priority should be definitely like the homelessness, the drug crisis, all these things that we see on our street. Why do our streets have to look like zombie land, you know?
Seriously.
And I mean, a lot of places like the U.S. are far worse, you know?
Way worse. Like, but it's inexcusable. To have people like freeze to death. Yeah. Like, come on. What are we fucking doing?
And I mean, we do have things for them, but like there's a lot more that could be done, you know? And I don't know if the right resources are being allocated. But we went all over the place a little bit. We didn't focus mainly on Iran, but...
yeah, when you in the description of the podcast, like we talked about stuff.
Yeah,
a number of topics was discussed.
Yeah, you're actually my foreign policy expert that I have.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on CNN like, "Suh, dude," like Trevor Wallace. You ever see those videos? Like, "Suh, dude." CNN. Yeah.
Trevor Wallace is which guy is he? Is he the guy who's like he does skits?
He does skits. He did the Zoomies one where Zoomies employees. I don't know if you've ever seen that dude.
Oh yeah.
That, like I'm that dude on something. Yeah, man, I'm a foreign policy guy, man.
Yeah, he does the finance, bro.
He's finance, bro. Oh, that type of shit.
Yeah, I know this guy. But yeah, man. It's a crazy time we're living in. It's a crazy time.
Especially for young people like us.
Yeah, like, it is. I was just, you know, it's. Obviously, like, you can get into all the conspiracy theories, whatever, about, like, the future. But, I mean, the best thing you could do is just focus on, your own life, you know?
That's it.
Because if you get sucked into that, and it's the same thing for, like, all the, you know, you want to be proactive and whatever. You could do that, but just don't let it suck your life, you know?
Yes. And you look at, like, people like our parents. Like, they came here at such a deficit. But if they were to mope around, you'd be like, oh, woe is me. I don't have the... Like, you just gotta like hunker down and just keep walking.
It's true.
You know, it's like when you're walking home from a blizzard.
Yeah.
You don't look back and around. You're just like.
You got good analogies.
Yeah,
Eh? You're
yeah.
quick with the analogies.
Yeah, it's the teaching. I have to make analogies for these crackheads. You know, that's literally it.
You teach crackheads on the
I
side.
teach
on the
crackheads.
weekends.
I teach crackhead jiu-jitsu. It's an outreach thing.
Have you ever had a crackhead do jiu-jitsu?
I've had people in the class that I'm like almost certain do crack.
Really?
Like at least dabble in. Bro, I've had people. Dude, I have like people at some of the classes. I shouldn't say people. I've had only a handful. Were like reek of alcohol.
Yeah.
Like during, and I'm like, dog, it's like
they're coming out to dog.
Yeah, I'm like, I teach a Tuesday class, so like Tuesday at like 8, somebody's reeking of like, I'm talking like vodka, like hard shit.
They just want to like, you ever watch that movie Barfly? You know Charles Bukowski, the writer. His whole thing was like the bar, like you know, the back in the day, like the 50s, 60s, 70s, like the bar culture, like the blues, you know, like kind of drinking, you know, and getting into fights.
That's
That's like what he lived for. It's like he's too poor to afford to eat food, but he finally eats a meal. He's like, now I got the strength to like
go get
fight.
a bar fight.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. You're drunk. You're like, oh, I want to fight somebody. You know.
Apparently, that was the thing in Persia. In ancient Persia, the councilmen would get either like unbelievably drunk. They had like forms of alcohol or really high.
Yeah.
Discuss an idea, and if they looked at the idea, this isn't bullshit. And if they looked at the idea and agreed with it when they were sober, they're like, let's go for it.
Okay.
This is actually a thing. Like, this is fucking crazy.
They would get drunk.
They'd get shit faced, think of an idea or like discuss ideas, come up with solutions. And then when they were sober and look back at it, if it still made sense, they would go for it.
That's interesting because when you're drunk or like when you've had a couple of drinks, at least for me, I like to have long conversations, you know, like, you know, that could last hours because your brain kind of becomes more flexible and
you're more personable. You can talk better.
Yeah.
You feel less.
Weed though is a lot more effective, I think.
Oh
for
yeah.
That, you know.
Oh dude, oh hell yeah. Yeah. No, especially you know 10th Planet, we were known for the ganj.
Oh yeah.
There are times, man, where you're just like, bro, class ended an hour and 40 minutes ago.
Yeah. Eh.
Yeah, and you're just there like, what the fuck?
So what is with weed and jiu-jitsu?
Well, I think there's a few things because in Brazil, weed for the longest time is like very much frowned upon. It's ironic because, like, if we were
Gracie brothers and all that.
Yeah, so like they're very so what people don't know, conservative in certain aspects. What people don't know, Gracies are actually Scottish.
Really?
Yeah, Gracie.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So they were rich Scottish people that came to Brazil. Brazil was at the time just like Brazil at the time was a Portuguese colony and it was the biggest aspect of their their entire empire. And so they would have, you know, Japanese people come in, people from Lebanon come in, like a lot of.
It was like a party.
Yeah, it was a party, and they would, and that's why you see so many Brazilian people that are of like Italian descent, this descent, all that type of shit. Mixed, and so they were rich Scottish people that came in there, and they were always known for being very high class. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of people don't know this, even though now it's so widespread in Brazil, it was like a rich man's sport.
Really?
It was because who could afford a gi? Who could afford a pearl weaved gi? So it was known for being like a very aristocratic sport. The father of Helio Gracie, Carlos Gracie, or their father, he learned it because he was a businessman. Because Japanese people came to Brazil and taught judo, and he could just afford privates and learn it and teach his kids and vice versa. And so
he learned jiu-jitsu or he made jiu-jitsu?
So Carlos Gracie, so this is Carlos Gracie learned judo. Helio Gracie created jiu-jitsu. He adjusted it for more of a smaller framed individual. They say smaller framed, they're all like 6 foot. They're just skinny as fuck because they eat like fruits and shit.
Yeah.
And he essentially adjusted it, made different techniques, put more of an emphasis on ground techniques. Judo over the years has strayed less and less away of ground techniques and of leg attacks, whereas jiu-jitsu, ironically enough, is actually done the opposite. It's like when you think of grappling sports, you know, you obviously think of like wrestling in a stance, judo in a stance, sambo in a stance. When you think of jiu-jitsu, it's synonymous with a guard because that's what differentiates it from wrestling, from sambo or judo. They don't really have any of that.
Yeah.
Especially in like something like wrestling. And but yeah, so they would they were incredibly well off people. They had a Gracie diet where they'd eat a lot of like fruits and shit, and they were very much away from the idea of
meat. Did they eat meat?
A little light meat, not too much meat. So they were always away from the idea of like drugs or this, that, the other, and that's very enriched in Brazilian culture as well, because it's like drugs are. There they have a different connotation with drugs. It's a lot of violence has occurred from it. It's kind of like Japan with tattoos.
Okay.
You know, if you have tattoos in Japan, it's more seen as like criminality, whereas here it's just you just have a tattoo.
Yeah.
So yeah, and in Brazil, it's odd because like in Brazil, me and you can go to a pharmacy and go buy like testosterone. It is not a
like steroids.
Steroids. It's not a prohibited like substance like that.
But
which is weird.
But testosterone like is only bad when it comes to competitive
exactly
issues.
So it's
not like a I don't know, I could be full of shit, but I know like when men get like in their 50s they start taking
totally and it's and that's the thing, like it's one of those like
is testosterone different from steroids?
So steroids is a subgroup of PEDs or performance enhancing drugs. Steroids are essentially androgenic what's the word? Why am I blanking out? Hormones. So
they make you like heart inflate and stuff.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So steroids are just essentially a group of PEDs that are hormones. So testosterone, taking testosterone. Like let's say if you were on TRT, which is like an individual you just described, someone who's an older man whose testosterone levels.
It's like what Joe Rogan's on probably.
Yeah. He takes, Joe Rogan particularly takes like HGH, human growth hormone.
HGH?
Yeah.
That's what I heard is like bad, no?
That can be bad. It's just, again, a lot of the issue with what you see is like the extremes of it. Like bodybuilders do die when they're 30s. But what you don't really notice are like famous people who take HGH, who take test, who take finasteride for their hair to grow their hair back. And even though for normal folk that would kind of lessen your testosterone, they can go on TRT clinics. And so they have the hair, they have the test and all that type of shit. You ever notice like most people are bald, but then when you look at like actors, you're like a handful of them are bald. They're losing their hair. It's not because they just don't have that gene. It's because they can work around it. But as for
or they can go to Turkey.
They can go to Turkey. Yeah. Oh, that's what Matthew McConaughey did.
He went to Turkey.
Google Matthew McConaughey's hairline from the 2000s to what it is now. It's not like that's not the same person.
Matthew McConaughey.
Old hairline.
Because his hair is like famous.
His hair is famous. Go look at it before. He had the Norwood 3. Oh
yeah.
Like
it's like hillbilly.
Like it's it's just a man losing his hair, right? But the reason the roundabout way of going about this was the reason marijuana is so big in jiu-jitsu isn't from the Brazilians. It's from when the Brazilians moved to California. Because in California, there's a huge surf culture and marijuana culture, and that's where having so many students and having so many academies in California, that's where the marijuana kind of came into play. Surf culture. That's where the chakra, whatever the fuck it is.
In Brazil?
No, that's why you see so many people do that.
Okay.
It's because of the surf culture that came from Hawaii.
Okay.
And San Diego and stuff like that. And so that's why it's such a big thing. Also with 10th Planet, particularly Eddie Bravo was just a big weed advocate, and having the main guy, especially so early on when weed advocacy in like 2003 wasn't as big as it was maybe 5 years ago. That's essentially it, really.
What about the performance of jiu-jitsu itself? Do you think like a person who's smoking weed has an advantage over someone?
I don't know if it's an advantage. It's just
because for me, I mean, I find like if I smoke or anything, like my lung capacity gets worse, and like I don't know. Recently, like I went to jiu-jitsu, dude, my chest has been killing me. I don't know if it's from people like sitting on my chest, or do you ever get that?
Yeah. It could be.
What is that?
It could be it could be a lot of it is the rounding of the shoulders, the kyphotic posture. So what ends up happening? A lot of times people think, oh, I have like really tight upper back. Must be something around my back. When in reality, it's your chest. Especially when you're in this kind of posture, which we're in.
I thought it's like someone sitting on my chest.
So what ends up happening is your pecs shorten and they tighten. What that does, because your shoulder is just a socket, is it comes forward.
Yeah.
and so that creates a lot of tension. It could also be like an acute injury, like someone fell on them or something like that. But that would be more. What you're describing is really just tightness of the chest. So if you have a lacrosse ball,
because it feels like almost like my bone. I don't know.
Like, is it closer to like the insertions?
It's like right here.
Yeah. So like closer to the insertions. Does it feel hard to breathe?
Sometimes it's more like it's I don't know, like this right now. It's like
so that's probably you probably just have like super duper tight. Yeah. Which is a good thing. That's better than like. And this is the interesting thing with the body. Like, you can legit be like, nah, bro, this doesn't feel right.
I feel like I just gotta like stretch. For an hour.
Get a lacrosse ball.
A lacrosse ball.
A lacrosse ball is a hard ball. You can get it on Amazon for like $5.
Okay.
And then you just open up your pec, and you just start doing glides.
Oh yeah.
On your upper chest, and it feels outstanding.
Really.
And then you turn it around, do some of your
rhomboids. Because I've been benching like 2 plates. That's
okay. So that's probably So that's probably it. You're overworking your front delts. You're overworking your pecs.
Yeah.
I would, if I were you, massage it a little bit. Try to do more like kind of corrective posture exercises, just a little bit, and do a lot of like upper back rowing. So like pull-ups.
It's true. I've been slacking on the back.
Pull things. Because remember, the shoulders, the reason they're such extraordinary joints is what is their fault. You know, it's kind of like a people, for example, or Western society. It's always moving. It's always changing. And because of that, it's always a victim to what's around it. Because it's in a socket, if you have issues with your back, or with most people have a kyphotic posture, that rounded shoulders forward, it tightens, right? And so because of that, people have difficulty raising their arms overhead, or have shoulder issues. That's why shoulder and hip issues is probably the most common things with jiu-jitsu practitioners, because that is it. Bad posture is good posture for grappling. Yeah.
Well, fuck, you just he gave you a grocery list.
You just open up the chest. I'll send you a bunch of like. I just realized I had my high vis shit on. I'll send you a couple like exercises and stuff like that. Super simple shit, and you'll feel like $1 million better.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, on that note, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it.
You know, I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's been a while. I've been slacking on the episodes, but you know, here we are. You know, it was just an important episode to get on, talk about Iran. I know we went all over the place, but you know, we shot the shit.
We ran with it.
Yeah, this is like the first time we formally get to know.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. No. It's always been like informal in between classes. It was such a pleasant surprise to see you in my Tuesday class, which was really nice. It's gonna be moved in the new location to Saturdays.
Okay.
So cool. Saturdays, I'm gonna finalize the time.
Saturdays are for the boys.
For the boys, exactly. And it's gonna be basically an empty gym. So bring the disco ball, bring the lights. We're partying, bro.
Awesome. And if you're from anywhere like 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, it's like they're all over the globe. So you could join your local 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. So yeah, awesome. Cool.
Thank you so much, brother.
All
Appreciate it, dude. Thank you so much, man. Awesome.